Good morning, class. Hope everyone is doing okay, and I hope that you are all ready for the start of the day and the start of our lesson. Just give me a little thumbs up in the chat if you can all hear me okay. Awesome, thank you very much. So, this is our lesson today, starting with the demographic transition model, and the aim of this lesson is to basically introduce us to our new chapter of geography, which begins to go into the demographic and people side of geography, which is something which we haven't covered before, but the beginning of this lesson should give us a good introduction into some bits of content which we will need further on down the line, and give us a good little brief on what will be needed of us following this lesson and getting into the rest of the chapter. Okay, so into the objectives now. All students should be able to understand the basic components and characteristics of the demographic transition model, DTM, by the end of this lesson. We call it DTM because demographic transition model is a bit of a mouthful, but that will be consistent in the rest of the slideshow. Most students will be able to identify where in the DTM certain countries should lie by the end of the lesson, and then some students will be able to determine which information is relevant when assessing a country's place on the DTM. Remember these objectives, it gives you a bit of a goals in terms of what you need to be hitting in this lesson, both at the most basic level, and then also gives you a little bit of a reach as well with that last one there. So keep these ones in mind when taking in the content and when we're doing the activities as well. So what is a DTM? The demographic transition model basically displays population change over time for a certain country or for different countries. Basically, it looks at birth rate, death rate, and the total population of a country and how they intertwine with one another. So you can see here, stage one, there's high birth rates, high death rates, low population. These are some very, very isolated tribes, and there's not a lot of countries which are still in that stage. Stage two, early expanding, birth rate stays high, death rate starts to drop, and the total population begins to increase. We'll get into some of the reasons why later. Stage three is the late expanding. So population begins to rise, and death rates continue to drop, and birth rates also begin to drop as well. Stage four, the low stationary, super high population now. Birth rates and death rates are quite low and have caught up to one another again. And stage five is the declining, where the total population begins to go down, and then the birth rate begins to drop below the death rate. So here is going to be a little video to kind of explain some of the things which I just said. Take it away. Okay, and we're back. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. So yeah, basically explained a little bit in terms of what I've already mentioned here. So these are the 5 stages of the demographic transition model, and ideally a country will go through all of these stages in its own development. There are certain countries which fit different aspects right now, which honestly leads pretty well into the next part of the presentation. So, just some examples of certain countries which might go into the different rates, or different stages I should say. So stage 1, high birth rates, high death rates, is a country like Ethiopia. Some of the majority countries in the world which haven't developed good healthcare for whatever reason have kind of fallen into either stage 1 to 2. And then stage 2, high birth rates, falling death rates, is a country like Bolivia. Then stage 3, declining birth rates and further declining death rates, is a country like China. They've had a lot of policies in place which have affected the population, both population density and the birth rates within the country, which we'll get to later on in the chapter. And then stage 4, low birth rates, low death rates, a country like Canada, and where not a lot of people are giving birth, but also healthcare is very, very well done in that country, and therefore not a lot of people are dying. And then stage 5, very low birth rates, slightly higher death rates, somewhere like Japan, where they're beginning to have issues with this and trying to encourage people to have more children to ensure that the population doesn't drop too low. Okay, so now that we've got that first bit of brief information through, time for a little group activity. All of you have been assigned into groups. You all have your own breakout rooms within teams as well. There'll be 4 groups. You need to define what the data tells you about the country your group has been given. So like we've seen already, some of the characteristics of what birth rates and what death rates and what populations fit into each different stages. That's kind of what you need to decipher now with the information I've given you to kind of test to see if you've grasped that as a concept a little bit. Once you're done, you need to produce a list of reasons why the country has those pieces of data. That is just a bit of fun. Basically, I haven't gone into those reasons yet, but I want to see if you guys can think of just common sense or basic intuition, maybe with some of the things I've mentioned earlier, if you can pick out some reasons why you think a certain country might have that certain bits of data. Don't stress too much if you don't know it. Don't worry, that's what this group activity is for, just so we can all learn, and feel free to come back and share your information when we're all ready. And then for a last bit of fun, try and guess what the country is based on the data you've been given. See if you can get that for some extra fun brownie points as well. Okay, so group 1, group 2, group 3, and group 4. These are your numbers. So you've got your birth rates, your death rates, and the life expectancy as a little bit of information. Come back in 5 minutes' time. Be ready to share your reasons and findings with the class, and just let us all know what you think each country is and where they lie on the DTM. Okay, see you in 5 minutes. And we're back. Thank you all for presenting your findings. Very, very good. It shows me you've got a good grasp so far of the information that has been presented to you all. So, group 1, your country was Argentina. Group 2 was South Africa. Group 3 was Norway. And group 4 was Indonesia. And all of you got it right in terms of which stages of the DTM they were in. So very, very well done, guys. So now a bit into the why things work out the way they are. The main reasons can be broken down into social and economic reasons. So things like religion and culture can directly affect some of the ways in which birth rate changes within a country. Knowledge, the amount of education provided to a local population, can definitely influence the amount that they know about families, they know about contraceptives, they know about children, and there's been correlations and studies to show which have basically proven that the higher educated a country is, the higher the life expectancy goes as well. Finances, so a country's finance situation in general can influence things like the healthcare available to them, again can influence the education, and therefore can both heavily impact life expectancy, death rate, and birth rate as well. Availability of good healthcare links to that, and then diet as well. Certain countries will not be able to feed enough food to their citizens, so that means that they're getting undernourished, but then other countries have issues where they're eating a bit too much, and that's kind of causing the life expectancy to drop because things like obesity and diabetes have been kind of plaguing people who basically cannot manage the amount of food that they eat, for whatever reason that might be. So, going into some of these social and economic reasons which might cause a birth rate to be high or low. Religion requiring no contraceptives. So there are certain religions in this world which basically not push, but their religious followers then are taught that contraceptives shouldn't be something that they use, and that's kind of to encourage having families, and that can also be a cultural reason as well in a lot of places, so that's one of them. Lack of knowledge on family planning kind of links to a bit more of the infrastructure and education provided within those countries, and if two people don't know how to properly family plan, so they don't know how to avoid having kids or have kids at the right time, it could lead to some issues as well with the birth rate. No knowledge on contraceptives. There are a lot of points for contraceptives as well, which we'll get into a little bit later, but if your citizens aren't being taught how to use contraceptives properly, or if they are even available to them, then that will definitely be affecting the birth rate within the country. High birth rates to combat high infant mortality. If there is not a good healthcare system set up within a country and the infant mortality rate is quite high, which basically means the amount of babies which don't make it past their first birthday, that means that parents will start having more kids to kind of combat the fact that more of them might not make it past their first year. Moving on to the economic reasons. So lack of healthcare contributing to the high infant mortality. Again, if the country's infrastructure is not set up to adequately help people who are giving birth, then that becomes an issue when they eventually have to give birth. Contraceptives being too expensive. If your citizens aren't making enough money to fund for contraceptive options, then that means that there'll be more things like unprotected sex, which will definitely then lead over to having more children. And then children helping to support the family, linking to the having more children because more of them might die point is that certain families rely on their children to help them both work and for income as well in certain situations. So that is another reason why birth rates might be high in certain places. And you can just think of the opposites for why they might be low as well. So a lack of religious or cultural presence, interfering with contraceptives, knowledge on family planning and contraceptives, and then the more children you have surviving, the less children people will begin to have, just because they know that their children will most likely survive. And then with the economic side, better healthcare to help combat high infant mortality rates, contraceptives being widely available. There's certain countries where it's free, Scotland, for example, provides free contraceptives to its citizens, and then children helping to support the family becomes less and less relevant if your parents are already making enough money to fully fund your family in certain places. Moving on to the death rate reasons. So there's socioeconomic reasons, poor healthcare. So if you get ill or you get maimed or injured, if you don't have the healthcare in place to help you, it means your rehabilitation process could potentially not work out very well for you and you might end up dying. Poor diet, I've already kind of mentioned that point earlier. Increases in education, like I said, that'll combat high death rates, and higher education basically means there's more people who will live to higher years. And gender equality, actually, it's been found that if you both educate women at a proper rate and treat them better, typically, it also then improves the death rates within a country, just because women are allowed to get into better positions and do better things. And also it allows for women to become educated, which we've already found out has a correlation with life expectancy. Now, onto a bit of an individual task. You're going to create a case study on a country of your choice, whichever one you want. And in that case study, you have to include birth rates and death rates, life expectancy of that country, which stage of the DTM the country falls under, and then 3 reasons for the way the data looks, kind of basing it off some of the reasons which we shared so far. And you have to find that specific to your own country. After 10 minutes, I'll get some of you to share with the class, and then you'll provide feedback to one another. There won't be enough time for everyone to share and get feedback, but of the 2 to 4 which do share, I imagine a lot of the feedback will be relevant to your case studies as well. So just keep an ear out for that. And in 10 minutes, we'll come back and we'll get people to share. So let me know if you have any questions. I'm always here to help. Thank you all very much for the work. Very good work from the 3 of you who did present and share. And I hope that the feedback was helpful. And for the rest of you, you got some basic guidelines there to kind of show you what else you might need to add to your case studies. Now, to begin wrapping up the lesson, we've got a little Kahoot to kind of test a bit of your knowledge. 7 or so questions, so it won't take too long. And I'll post the pin in the chat for all of you to see. Yes, so just some general questions, testing you a little bit on the information which I've imparted today, and we'll see if there are any areas which I need to further explain. Okay, so everyone feel free to join. Okay, good job on the Kahoot, guys. You can see that for the most part, everyone's grasped some of the content which I've been teaching today. So this is the homework section. I know homework, not good, but it'll be useful for you. So just a little bit of a wind down and recap. All students will be able to understand the basic components and characteristics of the DTM. As I saw in the Kahoot, everyone got that question right, or the ones linking to that right, so I have no issues there. Most students will be able to identify where in the DTM certain countries should lie by the end of the lesson. I can agree with that as well, based on your case study work and again some of the Kahoot questions. I feel confident in that as a concept which you guys have grasped fairly well. And then some students will be able to determine which information is relevant when assessing a country's place on the DTM. Once again, I saw that in all your case studies, and I'm very, very happy and pleased with the work which I have seen. So homework task, work and improve on your case studies based on the feedback that has been given. Make sure that you've hit all the informations or hit all the targets which I've set in the slide for the activity, which I'll be posting on Moodle, so all of you guys will have access to it. And I will be checking next week some of the case studies and taking them in to make sure that all of them have relevant information. And it will be useful for you because when we have our exams in the next couple of years, you'll need a case study that relates to the DTM. So this will be good to put in some effort here, guys. So yeah, thank you very much. These are the resources. That's all I really have to say. Unless anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. But yeah, have a great day, guys. Good work today. Really, really proud of the work you guys have done, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.